Suppose there is a chair in front of you in the classroom. You know it is there because you can see it. And all of us think there is a chair because all of us can see it. But now let us pause and think about what you're seeing. Are you seeing the color of the chair? Or are you seeing its shape? Are you seeing the color and the shape at the same time? If you say that you're seeing a chair, it is true you're seeing a chair. But actually, if I ask you what you're seeing, you might say, well, I'm seeing a blue color shape, which you call as a chair. So I hope you see, you can't immediately jump to our assumption that you're seeing something called a chair, but you're actually seeing something else, which you're putting together and recognizing that it is a chair. And remember, seeing and recognizing are different because you may be seeing a color, but recognizing it as blue is something else. That seems to be the basis of our human perception, how we see and perceive. So when I talk about seeing here, it's true for all perceptions. Perceptions is what? Seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting. All of these are perceptions which you have. So I'm going to use the word seeing because in your classroom, it's dominantly seeing is a way of, interacting within the classroom. You read a book, you see the board and so on. There are many complex questions. Seeing is something which we take for granted. You are born, you open your eyes and you think you start seeing. But the kinds of questions that are inherent, which are present in the act of seeing are actually very complex. For example, how do you know for sure that your friend is seeing the chair the same way that you are seeing it? How do you know that the chair appears the same for all of you sitting in the classroom? Because when you look at the chair and you say, well, this is what a chair looks like, and your friend next to you is also looking at it, and you're presuming that the chair is going to look the same way to that person. But you don't know for sure because your friend is seeing the chair within her mind or within her brain or wherever you see these things. And it is happening within you in some sense. And you both of you cannot share or you cannot compare your internal images and ideas. So how do you know? What is a guarantee? Now, suppose you're sitting in front of the chair and your friend is sitting behind the chair. And both of you are looking at this thing called the chair, but obviously what you see of the chair is different from the way the friend is seeing the chair. So why do you call both of them as seeing? People who see a chair from very different parts of the room, or imagine somebody seeing a chair from the top of the ceiling. And imagine there is a small insect below the chair which is looking up at the chair. And if each of them are saying, oh, I'm seeing a chair, and I ask each of you to describe what the chair is, for each one of you, the description is different. When you are seeing from the front, and you are going to say that, well, it has some two legs here, and it is flat, and there's something in the back. But the person seeing from the back is only going to see the back part and not the front part. So, if each time we see the chair, it looks different, from each perspective, it looks different, how do you really define a chair? Now, seeing, as I said, seems to be natural. As you open your eyes, you just have to see. You don't have to be taught. That's what people would think. But seeing is not that natural at all. For example, you could do this exercise. Let us say you've been sitting in your classroom for many days. Now, obviously, every day you're sitting in the classroom, between class or when you're bored, you look up and look all around. So I presume that you know enough about the room. Suppose I ask each one of you to write down everything you have noticed in the room. Don't look at the room now. I say, well, you've already seen the room enough, so just write down whatever you have seen. And then compare with what your friends write. You might be very surprised that different people have actually seen different things. Although we are all been seeing it in front of you, you have not seen it. It's a kind of focusing you need to be able to recognize so many things which are present in the room. Often we think that seeing is done with the eyes. But try this exercise. Close your eyes. Do you see any shades of color? Because if you're seeing only through your eyes, when you close your eyes, it should totally be black, right? But try it out and see. When you close your eyes and stare at your internal blackness, suddenly you'll see some blobs, some shapes floating across. Sometimes you'll see a patch of color forming. How is it when the eyes are totally cut off? Who is seeing those shapes and colors? That's a puzzle, right? And that's what I mean by philosophy is asking these questions about yourself, about what you do, just being aware of what happens to you. Because look at this other example. This is a more mysterious example. And it is common to all of you. This happens to you all the time, but it's still so mysterious. What is that mystery? Dreaming. When you dream, you see so many things. In fact, in dreaming, you can see people, we hear them talking. In dreaming, you can have elephants chase you and you're running and jumping and tigers shouting, all things that you may not have seen in your real life. Dreams can be colorful and exciting. But one thing is common with dreams. When you are dreaming, your eyes are closed, you are sleeping. Then how are we able to see these dreams when our eyes are closed? Who is seeing it? If your eyes are closed and you're still seeing the color and shapes and hearing things, what does it mean? Do you have an inner eye? Do you really need our eyes to see then? If we have an inner eye which is seeing all these colors and shapes, even when my eyes are closed, do we really need our eyes at all? Have you ever thought about how blind people experience this world? Can blind people dream? Do they see images in their dreams? So one way of thinking about it, because philosophy is not just about giving you answers, it's about exploring different answers, thinking about different possibilities. So I'm not going to give you some specific answer of how we can make sense of all these things about dreaming and seeing. But I first want you to think about it. And the thing which you can think about is to ask yourself, what is the difference between seeing with eyes open and dreaming? Can you think of a few differences? Because we now saw similarities. We saw similarities that you can see color, hear people talk, etc. But can you think of some differences between seeing in a dream and seeing in when you think you are awake? But there is another aspect of dreaming which is part of your day-to-day life, not just when you're sleeping. We also daydream. In fact, most times in my class, I'm pretty sure students daydream. Because they're sitting in class and looking at me as if they are intently listening to me, but I know they are thinking about playing football that evening with their friends or going out to see a movie. But they are sitting in the classroom silently looking at me. And if you ask them what they are doing, and if you ask them what daydreaming could be, some people would say, oh, that's just imagination. I'm imagining something. So you could ask the question, is imagination also a form of seeing? Do we have some special eyes that help us imagine? Is there a difference between imagining and seeing? Can you write down those differences? For example, you are sitting in the room and seeing a chair. And when you're seeing a chair, if I ask you, what are you seeing? You can explain to me by saying the chair has that color, it has this shape and so on. So that I presume that you're seeing. Now, I ask you to imagine an elephant in the room. And, maybe I don't know what you will do. You'll have to think about what you do when you want to imagine. Elephant is not there in the room, but maybe some of you may close your eyes and say, oh, let me imagine an elephant. And then I'll ask you, can you describe that elephant to me? And you will actually describe that elephant. You will say, well, You know, the elephant is of this big size, looks like this, it's making this sound, etc. Now, is there a difference between imagination and seeing? Because both cases, you have described the chair, you're describing the elephant. So how do I know you're not seeing an elephant? What is the difference then between seeing and imagining? Now, you might say the difference is obvious. The chair is in the room, the elephant is not in the room. That's true, but remember, we are talking about seeing, not about reality. As far as seeing is concerned, are you seeing the chair in the same way that you see the elephant? You know, what is very interesting is, and this is one of the most important central idea of philosophy, and why we start with perception. All of Indian philosophy begins with perception. Because it is through perception that you begin to know the world. You know the apple is red because you see it first as red. You know there is a chair in front of you because you can see the chair in front of you. Knowledge seems to come from perception first. It does not mean that everything you see is true, but at least that's where you need to begin. Now, it's not just sight which gives you knowledge. Even touching gives you knowledge. Smell gives you knowledge. You know that the mango is ripe because you can smell it. Through smell, you can know when it is ripe and when it is not ripe. Through touch, you can say whether it is ripe or not ripe. Because if the mango is soft to the touch, you might say it's ripe, but if it's hard, you would say, well, it's not yet ripe. So knowledge comes from all the 5 senses. And you can actually try this experiment. Touch objects and try and see what knowledge you can get out of them. Right? We don't get caught too much in the sight example, because suppose, for example, I'm seeing the chair and I see it's blue in color. So that's knowledge. Now touch, when I touch the chair, I may get a completely different type of knowledge than sight is giving me. When I touch the chair with my eyes closed, I may not know that it is blue, but I'll get some other knowledge, like maybe it is rough, it's smooth, or it feels very funny to the touch, etc. So each sensation produces different kinds of knowledge which you can hear through sight, sound, taste. Each of them produce different sound. Look at, for example, salt or sugar. By seeing it, you can get some knowledge. By tasting them, you can get completely different type of knowledge. So try and explore these things. Try and describe different objects which you see. Close your eyes and try and explore them, smell them, touch them, see what kind of knowledge you can produce. So when we do all this, what we are trying to do is to become self-aware of what we take for granted, which is our 5 senses. We are trying to focus attention on them and asking about them. What are these senses? What do they do? How do they work? How am I able to see something? How am I able to see something when my eyes are closed? Similarly, when your ears are closed, you can still hear voices within you. So who is this thing who is seeing, hearing inside you? Now, you might want to look at it as being too complicated and say, no, this is too much for me. Or you might say, well, I didn't know it was so much fun. I didn't know it was so exciting to think about these ordinary things. That's what we'll do in the next class about thinking.
The lesson you just heard was conducted by Professor Sundar Sarukkai. It is drawn from the book Philosophy for Children, Thinking, Reading and Writing by Sundar Sarukkai, published by Ektara Trust. Link to buy the book is in the video description below. This series is a production of Barefoot Philosophers, an initiative to bring philosophy to the public and children. For more information, visit our website at www.barefootphilosophers.com.